The late night at the office. The office was empty now. The hum of computers and faint flicker of lights, the only sounds breaking the stillness. Kate glanced at the clock on the wall, 9:45 p.m. Everyone else had left hours ago, leaving her alone with unfinished reports and the dim light of her desk lamp. She sighed, stretching her tired shoulders. Working late had become too much of a habit. But the promotion she was vying for wasn't going to win itself. She was startled out of her thoughts by the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to find Adam, the department manager, walking in, his tie loosened and a few buttons of his shirt undone. The sight of him, relaxed and confident, sent a flicker of something through her that she tried to push away. "I didn't expect anyone else to be here," he said, leaning casually against her desk, his gaze lingering on her. "I could say the same about you," Kate replied, trying to keep her voice steady. They had worked together for months now, but there had always been an unspoken tension between them, something that simmered beneath the surface during meetings and brief conversations. Now, with the office empty, it felt like that tension was all too real. "I guess we're both overachievers," he said with a grin, stepping closer. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air charged with something neither of them had acknowledged before. Kate swallowed hard, her heart beating faster. She had always been careful to keep things professional, but right now, the lines were starting to blur. Adam's presence felt overwhelming, his proximity intoxicating. "You've been working too hard," he murmured, his voice low as he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch sent a shiver down her spine, and her pulse quickened. "You should let someone else take care of you for a change." Kate's breath caught. She should say something, stop this before it went any further, but the weight of the moment held her still. She had spent too long denying the pull she felt toward him, and now, with him standing so close, the temptation was impossible to resist. "Adam," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Before she could say anything more, his hand cupped her face, and he leaned in, his lips brushing softly against hers. It was tentative at first, almost a question. But when she didn't pull away, the kiss deepened. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer, and she melted into him, her hands gripping the front of his shirt as the heat between them surged. Chapter 2, Crossing the Line. The kiss broke, leaving them both breathless, their foreheads resting against each other's as they caught their breath. "This is crazy," Kate murmured, but even as she said it, she knew she didn't want to stop. "I know," Adam replied, his voice rough with desire, "but I can't stop thinking about you." His confession sent a thrill through her, and before she could second-guess herself, she pulled him back toward her, their lips crashing together in a heated kiss. His hands roamed her body, and she felt the burn of his touch through her clothes as he lifted her onto the desk. Papers scattered to the floor, but neither of them cared. His mouth moved to her neck, leaving a trail of soft kisses that made her gasp, her body arching against him. She had never felt this alive, this electric. Every touch, every kiss sent sparks flying through her, and she couldn't get enough of him. Their clothes quickly became a distant memory, discarded in the heat of the moment. His skin against hers was pure fire, and she found herself lost in the sensation of his hands, his mouth, the way he made her feel like she was the only thing that mattered. Adam pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, his expression full of want and something deeper. Something that made her heart race. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice hoarse with need. Kate nodded, her body aching for him, her desire outweighing any doubts she might have had. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him closer. The connection between them was electric, every touch heightening the intensity. It wasn't just about the physical attraction. There was something more, a deeper connection that had been building between them for months, and now it was finally being released. They moved together in a perfect rhythm, the intensity of their passion taking over as they explored each other, every touch and kiss igniting something new. The world outside disappeared, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in the heat of the moment, giving in to the desire that had been simmering for so long. Chapter 3, The Morning After. The first rays of dawn were creeping through the blinds when Kate stirred, finding herself still wrapped in Adam's arms. She blinked, trying to process everything that had happened. The office was still quiet, the world outside still asleep. She glanced up at Adam, who was already awake, watching her with a soft smile. "Morning," he murmured, his voice warm and familiar. Kate smiled back, though the reality of what they had done was starting to sink in. Last night had been incredible, but now that the sun was up, she wasn't sure what came next. We crossed a line, she said quietly, not meeting his gaze. I know, Adam replied, his voice gentle, but maybe it's a line we were meant to cross. Kate looked up at him, surprised by his words. There was no regret in his eyes, only a quiet certainty that made her heart skip a beat. Last night wasn't just about the moment, Adam continued. I've felt this way for a long time, Kate. I've just been too scared to act on it. Her heart fluttered at his confession. She had been afraid too, afraid of what crossing that line would mean, of what it could do to their working relationship. But now, with Adam looking at her like she was the only person in the world, she realized that maybe it wasn't as complicated as she had made it out to be. Maybe this was exactly where they were meant to be. The end.